Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red. Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. We're back here on the Monday morning. We got through the 4th of July holiday weekend. There were some bumps along the road for Nebraska football in the past few days, so we'll cover that and everything else that has to do with the Huskers. But first, Danny, how you doing this morning, man?
Good. There were some bumps for Nebraska football. Luckily, there were no bumps for me. No bad hangovers, no lost fingers due to fireworks. So that's always a plus. But I'm excited to get into it today.
Yeah, that's always a plus. You never know what with some other folks out there, man, with the fireworks. But before we get into the Evan Cooper, John Butler, and all the other stuff going on with Nebraska football, please make sure, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, hit the like button, and check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. I know a lot of you guys support us here. We appreciate your support there as well. We put out a lot of great written content, at least great in our opinion. Hopefully the rest of you guys enjoy it as well. But let's get to kind of the first big news item. This dropped Friday night, I want to say, with Evan Cooper, the secondary coach, defensive passing game coordinator, a huge piece of the recruiting operation. Evan Cooper, who was with Matt Rule, at Baylor, kind of a right-hand man, was with him with the Carolina Panthers as well, resigned. And about the very next day, Saturday morning, it was reported by Pete Thamel and a bunch of other people on the Nebraska side of things that John Butler, a former coach, for the Buffalo Bills last year in the secondary, he's been defensive coordinator for Penn State, secondary coach for the Houston Texans. Basically, the last 10 years he spent in the NFL as a defensive backs coach, secondary coach. Last 2 years in Buffalo, he was the defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. So essentially the same role that Evan Cooper had outside of the recruiting stuff. So not official yet, but looks like it will be. So what do you make of all of this? Evan Cooper, who I thought was one of the most valuable members of the staff, out, and pretty good replacement by Matt Rule, I believe. But overall, what do you think that means for the program?
I feel like this is something that has been brewing for quite a bit. I've heard a bunch of stuff put out there about why Cooper left. I won't speculate on any of that because that's not fair to anybody. But it seems like Matt Rule always has a plan in place, and it seems like based off of just the timing of these hires, when you talk about Bob Wager, left the program, Josh Martin was immediately hired. Evan Cooper resigned from the program. Now John Butler looks like he may be, coming to Nebraska. So for all of these, departures, there have been quick replacements and, a chance to kind of solidify this coaching staff, which is so important with camp only a couple weeks away. And, if this was a case of misconduct or anything like that, I am glad Cooper is no longer in the program because we've had enough drama over this last decade that we really don't need that. And on the football side of it, I'm happy that Butler, is reportedly going to be in the fold. He's got a ton of experience, like you alluded to, in the NFL. He's got, he worked with guys like Tre'Davious White and one of the best corners in football. And he also, in my opinion, has a chance to be a defensive coordinator should Tony White leave. And quite honestly, I think we were really lucky to be able to keep him last year because he's one of the hottest names on the coaching market. And so this could not only help Nebraska for right now in terms of replacing Evan Cooper, but I also look kind of towards the future with this move. Should Tony White take a head coaching job or a better position somewhere else?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I know that Evan Cooper hasn't gotten a lot of talk about being the future DC in Nebraska before this all happened. But, he was the defensive passing game coordinator for the reason. And the pass defense was spectacular last year. I mean, he did make an impact in that secondary, and look at, guys like Tommy Hill and Isaac Gifford and all that. So, I mean, it is a blow. I don't want to minimize that. I do think that Matt Rule, like you said, he did a great job. And I do believe that this, at least had some, advance warning. I don't think you hire a guy like John Butler in one day. Although it's interesting that, Butler was kind of a free agent right now because he wanted to be the defensive coordinator in Buffalo and didn't get that job. And so that's kind of his goal, was to be able to run a defense. I think there is going to be a chance to do that in Nebraska, in the next couple of years. So yeah, I mean, I really do like this move, but it does it still worries me losing a guy like Evan Cooper, just the way that they had such a tight culture, on this defense,
Yeah.
and he knew it, he knew the players, and you're always going to have transition, and how much does John Butler know about the 3-3-5? How is he going to gel with Tony White? How's he going to gel with these new players? I mean, really, he's going to have a couple of weeks essentially. I mean, once this gets hired and official and gets to Lincoln, he's going to have a couple of weeks to get to know these guys before fall camp starts. So, I mean, regardless of however great a coach he is, it's not an ideal situation, but, he's got the background there. And, I'm sure that Matt Rule is going to do everything that he can to support him. Josh Martin was the tight ends coach, was in a similar position last year, but
Mhm.
at least promoted from within. He was on the staff, so he didn't have to make that transition. Everything that I've read about John Butler is that the players absolutely love him. So, I mean, I don't doubt that he will, earn their respect and win them over, fairly quickly. But it is a transition that you wish you didn't have to make, going
Right.
into. So it's still frustrating, even though I think that Matt Rule made the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, and that Matt Rule didn't make didn't make a move like this without some, information beforehand, or this wasn't just a out of the blue move. It was out of the blue, and I'll stress this because it's really important. It was out of the blue to the media because they reported it on Friday, but I don't believe this was an out of the blue situation within the program. And losing Evan Cooper is definitely a blow, and and I don't want to minimize that at all, and I'm not trying to minimize that, but at the same time, if you have some form of BS going on at this point, I'm just tired of it all dragging down the program. We saw it with Scott Frost, we saw it with Mickey Joseph. We've had way too many incidences with coaches. I mean, Bob Wager. I mean, at this point, if you're not committed to the program, or you're trying to, have some off the field stuff that is going to affect the program or create a bad culture, like, you need to get out at this point.
Yeah, I agree. You need to, the culture is very important, and Matt Rule has talked about running a tight ship. So yeah, we need to get. He posted yesterday, Coach Rule, it's our turn to do our
Mhm.
part. Posting a lot of, and I think that part of that was, with the coaching staff too. Like, we need to, it shouldn't be that hard to do all the little things that you need to do. You know what I mean? I have no idea what happened here
Yeah.
with Evan Cooper, so I'm not.
Yep.
But we all know what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis, and whatever, he was obviously involved in something, or some personal thing. I have no idea, but it's whatever it was, felt like it was going to be a distraction for this program, and there's too many things to overcome already. There's a lot of challenges, and you don't need to create distractions for yourself. So at the end of the day, I think it's the right move. I think the Huskers are going
Yeah.
to miss Evan Cooper. I think the
Mhm.
thing with John Butler, he just hasn't been in college football for a decade, so he's going to have to get back into the recruiting side of things, because Evan Cooper did play a big role in there. They probably
Yep.
don't get Ja'Cory Barney and Vincent Shavers without his ties to Florida. So, but it is what it is. That's the nature of this business. I mean, it hurt to lose Bob Wager and his ties to Texas, but at the end of the day, I don't think it really hurt Nebraska that much. It is what it is. You have to move on, and when it's time to cut bait, or whatever, you have to do it, and you have to move on, and you have to look forward. And I think that Matt Rule is really exceptional at doing that, and I think we've seen that in the past. Even when recruitments don't go Nebraska's way, they find a way to get something else positive. So this was a strong move, and it needed to happen quickly. And I guess on the recruiting front, that's kind of a good transition, because we had Bryson Weber, the 4-star cornerback from Missouri City, Texas, was supposed to decide on Saturday, delayed his decision, mostly because of the Evan Cooper thing, which tells you that he was going to commit to Nebraska, which we all expected. TCU and Utah are the other two teams kind of in the mix. I think some other teams are probably going to try to get into the mix, because right now, I saw a post the other day, and my numbers may be off by 1 or 2, but there's only in the 24/7 composite rankings, there's like 400 and some 4-star recruits. I think like 402 or something like that. Only like 93 are uncommitted. So like a vast majority of 4-star recruits are already locked up, and committed. So I think you're going to see with guys like Bryson Weber, teams maybe trying to get into the mix a little bit more. Christian Jones is another example of that, because there's just not that many blue chips on the board. But at any rate, now John Butler is going to have to try to establish that relationship with Bryson Weber, and I feel like that's going to be a good move. He's got the NFL background, but definitely opens the door for some other teams with him. So there are some kind of unknowns, I guess, with Bryson Weber at this point.
Yeah, anytime you get a new coach into the program, there's always going to be some recruiting fallout or recruiting turnover, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly that relationship with Weber is established, and also if Butler can move the needle to make him want to commit to Nebraska. I wouldn't be surprised if Weber didn't, just because of the change, but at the same time, I think if I was Weber, Butler's NFL background would be very appealing to me, and I think that's something that he can definitely sell, meaning Butler, in terms of recruiting. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I would love to have Weber, but I also understand if he wants to commit elsewhere. I mean, this wasn't the original coach that he wanted to play for, and that's just the nature of the beast, as they say.
Yeah, I think I do think it's probably a good sign that he's willing to give Nebraska a chance to, get the new staff in place and get to know them.
Sure.
So it feels like to me that that's probably his preferred destination, if the relationship works out with John Butler. And I'm confident that it will. From everything I've read, this is a player's coach. This is a guy that players love. And as somebody pointed out on social media, these guys want to get to the NFL. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. They want to make the playoff and they want to win games and do all that stuff. But these big time college football players, I mean, most of them, their main goal is to make the NFL. And, being coached by a guy who's been in the league coaching defensive backs for a decade is definitely going to help you in that process. So I feel like, overall, unless like Texas or Texas A&M, like one of those big Texas teams comes in and, makes a strong push, I feel like Nebraska's still in a good spot. I don't think TCU's coming to win this recruitment, but, you never know, but I still feel good about where Nebraska sits right now.
And when you have a strong coach like Matt Rule, who has a vision for the program and who knows what he wants and also has those Texas ties, I mean, that certainly helps as well. And so I still feel good about where Weber stands with the program. I could definitely see, like I said, why he would want to kind of delay his decision and figure things out, but I wouldn't be too alarmed yet. And I'm not saying that you are. I'm just making a general statement. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what Butler's ties with the NFL does in recruiting for future players and future classes. I think that's something that that is going to be very successful. And it's not like I coached corner X 15 years ago. I mean, Butler just coached Tre'Davious White and Jordan Poyer and those guys. So the relevancy of his experience in the NFL is very important as well.
Yeah, and I love the idea that, if Tony White, if everything goes like we want it to this season, Nebraska wins, 8 to 10 games and the defense is top 10, like there's a good chance he's going to be moving on. And it would be great to have John Butler step into that role, because I really do believe that NFL style defense, which Tony White, kind of runs, that 3-3-5, like that's what you need. You need to have a defense that can be, very versatile, very amoebic. And, I think that's, the teams that are having success in the NFL and the college level, I think, are the ones that are doing that, because you got to confuse the quarterback, which is harder to do now in the college game than it's ever been, because these guys are playing 7-on-7 when they're in like 5th grade, so they've seen it all. And so at any rate, I think that is a good move going forward. To transition to another thing on the recruiting trail before we get to some other rumor items that were created this weekend, dispelling some rumors. David Sanders kind of pulling the Brandon Banks, ploy here. Nebraska wasn't in a recent top 6, but he kind of released the top 4 yesterday along with the commitment date. I want to say for August, wasn't it? Or is it
August
July?
17th, I believe.
August 17th. Yeah. So, Nebraska makes the top 4 with Ohio State, Tennessee. I'm blank. Is it Georgia?
Georgia. Yeah, Georgia.
Okay. And so in there was some pretty heavy hitters. I don't know. It feels like engagement farming to me, but his family did say a lot about his visit, that he liked his visit a lot. So I don't know. Do you have any hope whatsoever? Do you think Nebraska has any shot at getting David Sanders?
No, and that's okay, because if you look at his recruitment announcement, the Nebraska boombox is front and center. We're in the mix with Georgia, Ohio State, and what was the other one? I totally just blanked.
Tennessee.
So the fact that Nebraska is even in that, that those 4, with those 3 other schools, I think is a really good thing. I don't expect to land him, but I do think that the fact that Nebraska is showing up on more and more of these lists is a plus. And I know nobody likes moral victories and blah, 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 but it is a plus because, it's showing that recruits are paying attention to what the program wants to do. Recruits are buying into what the offensive line wants to do as a unit, and, they're getting more talent into the program. So even if Sanders commits elsewhere, the fact that the Nebraska boombox is on the front of the poster, I think, is a good sign. It's always hard to land any sort of 5-star recruit, never mind if you're a team that went 5-7 just last year. So I'm probably thinking Ohio State, but, it's not that I don't think Nebraska has zero chance whatsoever. It's just a hard sell when you go to battle with these programs on the recruiting trail. And the fact that Nebraska is even in this conversation is a testament to what the coaching staff has done in terms of trying to recruit Sanders.
Yeah, I think the boombox is pretty cool. I mean, you can't beat the Nebraska boombox, so that definitely is worth getting on there. I agree with you, but I do wish I had one of those. That boom, I want to do the whole Breakfast Club thing, just hold it above my head. If Nebraska ever wins the national, I'm gonna get one. I'm just gonna walk around wherever, just just carrying it around with the radio broadcast of the game. So I don't even care. I'm gonna take it to work with me. If Nebraska ever wins the national championship again, I don't even know what I'm gonna do, but I'm going to get one of those boom boxes and make a complete ass out of myself. At any rate,
if Nebraska wins the national championship, we're moving to Lincoln and we're making our own headquarters. And I don't know what I'd do. The entire city of Lincoln would just burn down for a week.
Yeah, that would be crazy. It would, but eventually, someday, we might be there again. I don't think we're going to get David Sanders, but what I would say is that if Nebraska can try to get him on campus, if he comes to that, I'm sure they'll have a cookout in July, maybe not a big one, but if they do have that unofficial visit weekend and they can get him there, then maybe they have a shot.
Yeah.
It feels like to me it's going to be Tennessee or Ohio State and probably a crap ton, probably more NIL money than Nebraska has to pay.
Yeah.
But, but I do think that it is a good thing that guys are in the mix. Dylan Raiola's getting us in the mix, Matt Rule. And once we start 7-0 this year, like the national media says, then maybe we'll win some of these recruitments. Who knows?
Like the national media says, I just want to preface that. Like the national media says, not us, like the national media.
I'm like Matt Rule, man. I'm like, let's get to 1-0 first. Let's get to 1-0 because I've just seen too many. I've seen some things, man. I've seen some things. So let's just win the first game.
Win the first game. If we beat Colorado, I'm not saying we will, but if we beat Colorado, I think we have a good shot. But let's focus on UTEP first.
Yeah, if we beat Colorado, then I'm going to take a shot of Kool-Aid with some hard liquor on that week 2, because then the Kool-Aid drinking is going to go to a whole nother level if we beat Colorado.
You should do it during the show, and then that'll make for a very interesting show.
The Rule-Aid. We should make the Rule-Aid, the actual Rule-Aid. That would be kind of funny.
Drink the Rule-Aid. That's a straight idea.
Yeah, it is. So at any rate, we did want to talk about Terrence Knighton just for a minute, because Nebraska fans, there's a bunch of misinformation going out there, and I don't know if he updated his Twitter profile, which people will do from time to time. I think it says CEO of Death Row, and then Terrence retweeted something later, and it was a person with a Nebraska hat on, I believe, saying you guys need to get familiar with what Death Row is, essentially, something like that. So I think that was Terrence Knighton saying, hey, nothing's happening here. But yeah, there's always rumor mongering, and people were trying to make a big deal out of nothing, saying that Terrence Knighton was leaving, which obviously would have been, would have been a very concerning issue. Yeah. But much ado about nothing. There's no indication or reporting or anything saying that Terrence Knighton is leaving. So I think this is just a reminder that fall camp starts July 31st. Like fall camp just needs to get here. The offseason just needs to end.
Yeah, as boring as we may be to some of you, we don't try to fish for views or start any crazy BS, and that's why you didn't see us write anything on it. I had asked Chris, and we both agreed that maybe we shouldn't write anything on it yet, and let's see it play out. But even I was sweating for about an hour or two. I was like, oh no, Terrence Knighton and Evan Cooper in less than 24 hours. Like, that would have been disastrous. But
that would have been the pot roast, man. I love pot roast. I think he's one of our best coach and recruiters, man. Like,
and I do think he's going to leave just for another coaching job. I think when you look at the staff, Terrence Knighton, Garrett McGuire, Tony White. I think McGuire maybe a couple more years at Nebraska, but I do think he has bigger dreams than being the wide receivers coach. But when you look at the staff, it's definitely a staff that will be attractive to other college programs for other positions. And I think, like I've said before, that's a good thing. I mean, you want coaches promoted. You want Tony White to take a head coach job because that makes a lot of other up-and-coming coaches want to come to Nebraska because now they know it's a chance to kind of get an advance in their careers. And that's not a bad thing at all. Coaching development is great. And if we can become a coaching development program as well as, have on-field success, then that would just be another feather in Matt Rule's cap.
Yeah, great coaches. They're great at developing players, and they're great at developing their assistant coaches. And I believe that Matt Rule is going to prove to be that, during his tenure, which is a great thing. It's good to have those guys moving on. And yeah, I think Terrence Knighton, to me, at some point, he's going to get a chance to go to the NFL. I mean, I think he's that good of a coach. And I think when people see, look what he did last year with Nash and Ty Robinson and what he does this year, with those guys, and then Cam Lenhart, Riley Van Poppel, this defensive line is going to be really good. And Terrence Knighton, deserves a lot of credit for that. So, yeah, James Williams, Kai
I was
Long.
going to remember James Williams because he came into the program early. Later, excuse me, but he was.
Yeah, he almost made my list of breakout candidates, but it's tough. It was a tough list to put together because there's a lot of guys that could be on that list. I mean,
and 3 guys from the defensive line could be on that list, but no, it's just a testament to the fact that he develops players well. He can recruit really well, and he's a total package and everything you look for in a coach. And I think he can really relate to players well. So I think he will leave at some point. I don't think he's leaving this week. So at least we can breathe easy for another year or so, maybe.
Yeah, I think we got the staff set with John Butler now, and then we'll see what happens with recruiting here over the next few weeks. And then it's going to be fall camp, July 31st. The guys are going back to the dorm rooms, and it's going to be exciting, man. We're less than 2 months away. We're like, I don't know how many days because I'm not that good at math, but I know it's like 50 something days till the season opener. So let's go.
I'm a writer. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I don't know either.
I look at the social media accounts, and then the calendar days get me all screwed up too, because they got the 31 days and stuff like that. So it's like, it's just but at any rate, I know we're getting close. So on that note,
one other thing that I wanted to mention before we exited here is just the Under Armour invite acceptance for Houston. How do you say his last name?
I think it's Kahina Torres. We're gonna have to learn how to say that,
but Under Armour invite, he accepted it on Saturday, I believe it was, and that's important to me just because that's another Nebraska representative in that game on the offensive line. I know Gibson Pyle was part of it, I believe, last year. So, it's just a testament to the ability to find diamonds in the rough. And quite honestly, I think he has a chance to be a 4-star. I really do. I think he's vastly underrated. His physicality and his ability to run block. I mean, boy, he can finish plays with the best of them. So I do think you might see a ratings bump at some point over the next couple months because he is a hidden gem and he's not a project player. He is really good.
Yeah, and you look at he's not that far away either. He's an 88 in his ranking. So even if he doesn't get there, it's one of those 3 stars where you feel like you got a 4-star. And
sure.
I'll take the best offensive lineman from Nebraska or from Hawaii in every single class. So if we can just get that set up, 2026 best offensive lineman from Hawaii, just come on down to Nebraska. I'll take every single one of them. So
I'll take it. Building the Hawaii pipeline over the last 2 years for linemen has been really important and has been a really positive sign.
And rebuilding that Polynesian pipeline, I think, can be a really good thing. Brian Tapu as well. So, so that's a good nugget. We'll end it there, folks. But check out HuskerBigRed.com. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Get into the comments section, hit the like button, check out HuskerBigRed.com, and we'll be back for another episode later on this week. Until then, have a great rest of your week. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.